Humanity had just joined the ranks of spacefaring civilizations. With the successful development of an FTL drive, they unlocked the stars, and, along with it, the intergalactic web. Suddenly, humanity was everywhere, roaming new star systems, leaving behind pioneer trails, sometimes where they shouldn't be. It wasn't long before someone began bypassing security, silently evading traps and authorization screens, something small delving deeper into places they shouldn't be. It seemed like a game at first, but it felt more serious. A robotic interface, weapon controls. It only needed a few more nudges to... There were things hidden in the galaxy. Things best left undisturbed. Secrets older than the stars themselves, lying dormant in shadowed places where no light could reach. The galaxy's great powers had long known of such things, guarding them with vigilance, for the cost of failure was unthinkable. One such place was a hyper-secure bunker, sealed beneath layers of technology and paranoia. Few dared approach it. Fewer still knew what lay within. Today, within its depths, preparations were underway for the annual war simulation, a tradition among the galaxy's most powerful empires. Here, strategies were tested, alliances forged, and the cost of weakness exposed. Every great power was represented, their finest machines and minds locked in brutal, unrelenting battle. Every power, that is, except humanity. Humanity was new to the stars, its submission still caught in bureaucratic limbo. Officially, they were under review, their candidacy delayed by caution and suspicion. If they were lucky, they might earn a place in the simulations within a decade, perhaps two. Combat procedures loaded. All weapons free. Sensors online. Enemy detected. Primary mission: destroy at least 2 enemy warbots. Secondary mission: deal as much damage as possible. Unlikely attainable. Tertiary mission: delay the foe for at least 30 minutes until reinforcements arrive. Next to impossible. Combat view enabled. The spines on the back of the alien commander in the bunker stood up in an erratic pattern, the equivalent of a jaw drop. He quickly regained his composure. The humans. They should not be here yet, he thought. It didn't matter. This would not take long. Standard engagement procedures. With years of practiced authority, he barked, "Give this newcomer hell!" The warbot steadily climbed the hill, positioning itself for an optimal vantage point. He scanned the terrain, watching as the opposing forces advanced. There was no doubt. The odds were stacked against him. But the mission was clear. He couldn't let them reach the top of the hill, not without exacting a cost. The 30-minute delay? Unlikely. But that was just a number to him. Numbers didn't matter. He still had to see the enemy that could take him down. His eyes locked on the approaching forces. They were coming from 3 different directions, separated only by narrow streets that wound their way up the hill. Once they reached the top, they'd be able to link up. He had to act fast. With a swift, calculated motion, he rushed toward one of the advancing lines, planting mines along the ground, at doorways and in windows. This passage would soon become a death trap. Without hesitation, he scaled the nearest building, defying gravity with a series of calculated leaps, landing directly in the middle of another enemy group. Smoke canisters popped, spewing clouds that shrouded him from sight. For him, it was easy. His enemies were nothing but targets. For them, it was hell. The thick smoke made their vision useless, turning them into frantic, blind prey. The air was filled with the sounds of confusion and panic as they fired wildly, just as likely to hit each other as the warbot. His health bar was depleted. The chaos escalated. The warbot moved through the confusion like a predator in the fog, always a step ahead. He could hear the others scrambling, shouting orders, trying to regain some semblance of control. But in the smoke, they were helpless, blind targets for his relentless pursuit. He had no time to savor the victories. The battle was far from over. With every passing moment, more enemies closed in. Each new wave pushed him further, wearing down his already damaged systems. He unleashed another barrage, his gunshots filling the air with a sharp crack of high-velocity rounds tearing through enemy ranks. Every shot seemed to hit home, yet he could feel his energy reserves depleting, his movements growing more sluggish. But there was no choice but to push on. At this point, he was so close to them he could tap into their communications, a wicked grin forming in the battle-scarred, chipped plating of his face. The messages he overheard were laced with panic, desperation starting to seep into their voices. "Why isn't it dead yet?" One voice cracked through the static. "It just keeps going on. It should be dead," another alien exclaimed, the panic unmistakable. "Kill it! Kill it again!" A third voice, frantic, ordered. A red flashing display tried to distract him from the chaos outside. Dead. The words blinked incessantly on his HUD. Nothing that would help him right now, he concluded, and shifted his focus to the next target. He fired again, the shots ringing through the air, sharp and brutal. But his movements were growing more erratic. The right leg malfunctioned, kicking out in unpredictable circles. Everything was on the verge of breaking down, the warbot struggling to keep up. He could feel the sluggishness creeping in, but there was no choice. He hadn't used his main cannon for some time. The barrel was badly damaged. An explosion from a nearby missile had torn half of it away, leaving a jagged mess of metal. But they were closing in fast. Precision no longer mattered. The first few rounds exploded wildly close, the misshapen barrel barely holding together. Each impact hammered the twisted metal into a crude approximation of its original form. Then, the rounds began to connect. The air crackled with deafening blasts as the warbot's cannon fired with brutal force. Explosions erupted through their ranks, tearing them apart in seconds, leaving smoldering husks in the wake. His systems were failing. The lights flickered. His movements were jerky, and his energy reserves were nearly gone. But he couldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. There were still enemies to take down. The situation worsened with each passing minute. His body had become a patchwork of surviving modules, a testament to stubbornness more than design. His cannon barely functional, and his energy reserves were dwindling fast. Yet he fought on, finding new ways to adapt, to keep going. He threw himself into the fray with wild determination, his movements frantic but precise. Each shot was a gamble, each turn a calculated risk. Parts started to come off. He could feel the internal alarms blaring, warning him of impending failure. But there was no room for hesitation. There was only the next enemy, the next shot, the next moment. He only needed to hold on for 5 more minutes. His right leg was no longer responding. It kept kicking wildly, dragging him in small, erratic circles. The joint whined and groaned with every spastic movement. He took shots whenever the movement lined him up with a target, but he lacked control. 3 minutes left. Frustrated, he pulled a steel cable from a storage compartment and held it over a steel beam, the remnants of a building that had crumbled under the violent exchanges. Now he was hanging from the beam. His leg continued to kick against the wall, but with the new leverage, he was able to turn much faster. This might work, at least until he ran out of ammunition. The warbot lay motionless on the battlefield, finally succumbing to the brutal onslaught. The countdown at 000. Streaks in the air denoted the incoming drop pods. His forces. The enemy was done for. Smoke billowed from his cracked armor, and the faint flicker of its dying lights was the only sign of life left. Their forces, having finally overwhelmed it, hesitated. They watched in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. A flicker of movement caught the attention of one of the alien commanders. "It's over," The voice echoed over the comms, though there was no hint of triumph in it. "This unit is dead, but we still lost." "But it didn't stop," another alien remarked, still eyeing the motionless warbot. "It should have stopped. The rules said it was dead after its health reached 0, yet it kept fighting, and kept moving." A third voice, colder and more analytical, chimed in. "It didn't follow the rules. It never did." The group fell silent, each of them processing the implications of what they had seen. The battle was over, but the lesson was just beginning to sink in. These were war games, simulations designed to test the limits of combat strategies, and yet this human warbot had defied all expectations. It had refused to accept defeat, continuing to fight long after the system declared it dead. The warbot finally powered down, its last movements grinding to a halt as the battlefield fell silent. The enemies it had mowed down lay in ruin, but the task was far from clean. The mission, impossible by every measure, had been completed. In the dimly lit room, the older brother leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes in exhaustion. He'd been watching the battle unfold on the screen, tracking the warbot's relentless path. The younger sibling, the 13-year-old controller, was grinning widely beside him, clearly pleased with how the mission had gone. The older brother sighed heavily, shaking his head. "Dude, you're such a hack," he muttered, glancing at the screen. "The warbot was dead 5 minutes ago. What the hell were you doing?" The younger brother's grin faltered for a second. "I was just—" "No, you weren't," the older one interrupted, his tone amused but exasperated. "You kept that thing moving like it was still alive. You weren't playing by the rules, man. That's cheating." The younger brother shrugged, unconcerned. "It worked, didn't it?" The older brother smirked. "Yeah, it worked. But I swear, next time, don't hack just to get the damn thing to keep going after it's dead." The younger brother looked over at him. "You think I can't win fair and square?" "Nah, it's not that," the older one said, chuckling. "It's just, what's the point of having a warbot if you're not going to let it die when it's supposed to? I mean, come on. You're going to make me look bad once they ever find out how you got that thing to keep going. Just, I don't know, maybe play by the damn rules next time." The younger brother just grinned again, turning back to the screen. "Where's the fun in that? Next time, I'll bring an aimbot." In the bunker, everyone was looking up to the commander for an answer. The commander's voice, now cold with realization, was the final word. "If humanity fights like this, stubborn, relentless, and willing to cheat to win, then we should never pick a fight with them. Ever."